Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
To have you with us on the show today. Yes, Big 12 media days are going on right now, and it's been very quiet. It's in Frisco, Texas, at the Star, and it's actually been quiet. I figured there'd be a lot of talk about, the future playoff structure and things like that. Nope. I mean, they've been quiet, and that's been really great to, I mean, we'll find out what. And they're not doing a poll.
Right.
Last year, I believe Arizona State was picked 15th and won. So we're not doing a poll this year. Okay. And yeah. And so we'll see. No poll, quiet, which is unusual for a Brett Yormark production. Because normally he'll get up there and he'll make some news of some sort. He's usually outspoken about something, anything, and nope, he's been just going along doing his deal, and let's see here. There's no real big stories. Deanna has a new quarterback. We know that. The commissioner, Yormark, started talking at 10:30. He's made no news yet. Then after that, let's see. Cleveland, Satterfield. Scott Frost, the new UCF coach, is at 12:40. And Deion doesn't go till tomorrow, evidently. Deion goes last.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah. Well,
he
makes
goes
sense.
Last.
Of course he does.
So, in fact, you know what? Yormark hasn't started yet because he doesn't start until 10:30 Central Time, so 11:30 Eastern. So, all quiet on that front. Then next week it'll kick in with the SEC Media Days in Atlanta, opposite the All-Star Game. And, and then you go from there. Paolo Banchero gets a $239 million rookie max deal. Okay. And an American has reached the Wimbledon semifinal on the men's side as Taylor Fritz won in 4 sets to advance. So he's in. He's the first active American. Now we'll see if Ben Shelton could be. He's got Yannick Sinner. Sinner advanced yesterday on injury. Sinner was down 2 sets to none.
Yeah.
And they were on serve in the 3rd set when his opponent injured a pec muscle. And, So, Brown brings championship pedigree to Knicks. Okay. I suppose he does.
That's
meanwhile,
had to have him. There's at that point with the search. That's the right hire.
By the way, Tyrese Halliburton will not play next season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, that's So,
yeah, postseason that you're not going to forget anytime soon. Absolutely, just phenomenal player. Just hope he recovers from this.
Oh, I mean,
which
yeah, it's awful. It's awful. By the way, if you're wondering how Ace did in last night's game, it was his turn not to play. They rotate guys as to who's playing. Like, for example, Andrew Funk played last night for the Sixers. In fact, I watched some of it last night. And, Hood Schifino took a lot of shots. I also noticed none of them were going in. The last 3.5 minutes of the first quarter, nobody made a basket. Yeah. Just what the league needs. All free throws. All free throws. Yeah. So, what did Andrew do in last night's game? Let's see what kind of... Check the box score on Andrew Funk. Funk, that's Oklahoma City. Funk played 9 minutes last night and hit a three-pointer, had 3 rebounds. Okay. Hood Schifino, meanwhile, took 112 shots. No, I'm just kidding. He took 10. But Janai Broom played, and Broom didn't have a great night. 6 points, 4 boards, 2 of 7 from the field. In fact, his 6 points were all threes. No, there you go. So that's where that is. And the I was interviewed today about basketball, and they were asking me about the makeup of this year's team. And, they're green, okay? And not everybody's there yet. There are a couple guys that are going to be here in all likelihood in August, And do I like some things I see? Sure. Do I know they're green? Yeah. Do I know how well they're going to do? Nope. I don't know. In fact, right? It is, what's interesting about it is this. And I made this comment last year. Remember, Penn State was picked at 17th last year, and it turned out whomever picked it was right. That's where they ended up, to their credit. But I think it's so difficult in this day and age to figure out how good teams are, because you don't know how everybody mixes these days with everybody changing over.
Right.
Maryland's roster is completely different. There isn't a single player back on Maryland's team. Indiana, everybody's back except for 2 everybody's been changed over except for 2 walk-ons. Okay? The Cook brothers are the only 2 guys left on the Iowa roster. Everybody else changed. Minnesota's changed everybody but 2 guys. I'm supposed to know how good they are? Every single player but 1 on USC changed on their roster. Okay? Washington has 3 guys back. Everybody else changed. How am I supposed to know how good their roster is? I don't know. And I realize that people have to write articles. They have to do it.
Sure.
They have to do it. So that I understand. So you've got to come up with something. So DeVries is in Indiana. His son's going to play a big role. Right? McCollum's now at Iowa. Darn well that the guys he brought over from Drake are going to play big roles. But the Drake kids are good players. Some of them were with him at Division II. All right? But I don't know how they're going to respond to a game in and game out grind in the Big Ten. How do I know? I don't even think Ben McCollum knows. It's one thing to win a couple of games in the NCAA tournament after going through the Missouri Valley Conference. It's another thing to have to go through and play 18 consecutive games because you'll play too early. But then have to play 18 consecutive games as you go through. And it's a grind. I don't know how they're going to play. Right? Nebraska's changed less than people think. In fact, we're at the point now where guys are returning. Jamarcus Lawrence left, went to Rhode Island, came back. There you go. Good. USC's roster, like I said, one guy back. Oregon and UCLA haven't put out their rosters yet. There's a bunch of schools that haven't. Michigan State, right. Michigan, UCLA, Oregon. I mean, Washington hasn't put out its roster. I just know the three guys returning because they're on their spring roster. Okay. Who else hasn't put out their roster? Ding, 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 ding. Rutgers has. Maryland has. Michigan State. No, Illinois put out its roster too, which I was surprised they did. But they've got more guys back, but guys that didn't play a lot. And plus Ty Rodgers got hurt, and I think Rodgers is going to be out for a period of time. Right, one of their veterans. So, I mean, who knows how good anybody is? I mean, like, I can tell you how good Purdue is. They have everybody back except for one guy. Okay, they got Kaufman run back. They got Smith back. They got Lawyer back. I mean, a couple of guys did transfer out. Okay. But for the most part, you know what Purdue is. And it's like same names, a couple of changes here and there. That's about it. And you know they're going to be really good. Northwestern, they haven't put out their roster yet either. So you're talking about guys where you got to sit down and do a lot of research about, like UCLA hasn't put out its roster, but based on articles that have been written in the LA Times and so forth about who left, who transferred in, things like that. They've got that coming up. But it's difficult to do. It's the same thing in football in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with it.
I mean, football, the roster retention spot. I talked with Phil Steele yesterday. And I said, Phil, the big part to me is that you look at the four teams that made the college football playoff Final Four last year. So they all had one thing in common. They said they were all judicious with the transfer portal because they focused on roster retention. I said, and that was big. Now, a guy like Kurt Signetti goes into Indiana. Did he change over a good chunk of the roster? Yeah. Did he have to? Yeah, he had to because, players were leaving and he was coming in. He brought a lot of the James Madison guys with him. We were just talking about Drake to Iowa in basketball. The James Madison guys jumped into Indiana. A lot of them played really well for him, right? But the schedule was also favorable too. They didn't hit the rough patch until the end when the second half against Michigan was the first indicator that, may not be ready for prime time because they had to hold on against a Michigan team that was offensively challenged.
Struggle. Yeah.
And then Ohio State.
That was in Bloomington.
It was in Bloomington. Yeah. And then Ohio State, they had no trouble with them. And then, of course, Notre Dame essentially had no trouble with them either. But to their credit, they made it.
Yeah.
They were in, right, which was incredible. But they had to change over the roster to get there. I mean, you think the Purdue roster is the same Purdue roster? I mean, Penn State's not playing Purdue this year, but do you think Purdue's roster is the same as last year? No. In fact, Max Clare, right, who's I thought was their best offensive player, the tight end, he's at Ohio State. Okay. He's at Ohio State. He's an Ohio kid anyway. But still, that's where, like, the transfer portal part has put a level of unpredictability in there that is interesting. You can be judicious with the transfer portal. So Penn State was the only one in the Final Four last year whose quarterback began his career at the school. Will Howard had been at Kansas State. Riley Leonard had been at Duke. Quinn Ewers had been for 1 year at Ohio State.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So that part was different. But you look at the rest of them, The rest of the unit, there's a player here and there, like a Judkins. He and Henderson were the 1-2 guys. Judkins transferred in from Ole Miss. Okay. Right, you got Claire this year transferring in from Purdue, but I mean, Smith was a true freshman. Carnell Tate's now going to his third year as a wide receiver. I mean, they've got roster retention. Penn State's the same way. Notre Dame, they were able to keep a lot of guys for the fifth year. Xavier Watson, those guys made a big difference for them. Texas was the same way. And I think that for the more talented teams out there, roster retention is the big part of it.
Oh, yeah.
I think the ones that are middle of the pack and down are fighting to find whatever combination they can to win now. Hi, I'm the head coach of whatever. Privately, my job is to save my job.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Great.
That's right on. But I think a lot of people looked at Ohio State last year and looked at the money they spent in the portal. I thought the biggest part for them was what they were able to keep. And you talk about retention, what they brought back defensively,
sure,
I thought was huge, without a doubt. And offensively, you bring back, I think it's extremely underrated what veteran leadership does to a locker room. And you bring that back with Emeka Egbuka, you bring it back with Travion Henderson and a few other guys. I think it was huge, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And, look, they came together after the Michigan loss and ultimately played their best football down the stretch in the playoffs, without a doubt. So I think retention is as big. And, as far as rankings go, I think it's changed so much at this point, and you talk about it with basketball, where you don't even know you don't even know you don't know entirely what some of the rosters are because they don't put them out, because you don't entirely really see what they have yet as a team. It's changed so much that you can't really have. I think the Big 12 media day is accurate. You don't really want to have these preseason accolades or rankings in terms of a conference. It's. You do it for hype, sure, but
that's one of the hardest things I have to do.
It's incredibly hard.
When I have to sit there and I go, oh, man. The postseason ones I have no problem with.
Well, yeah.
Right? I'm taking a body of work. I'm trying to, put a first, second, third team together, football, basketball. Okay. But you've got a body of work and players that you've seen in person that you can really, give an evaluation as to who they are. Plus, you've seen enough tape on teams as you get ready for them, where you can really get a feel as to who's playing well, who's not. When you're doing the preseason one, and I'll say this, football, if I recall correctly, we only have to do 10 players to watch. And I think that, that's fine. And I had the same thing with basketball, players to watch. I voted for the Big Ten Male Athlete of the Year. I know I've got that vote as well. But I think that that is those are hard to do. And picking where teams finish, I mean, are you kidding?
Yeah, no, it's
you have to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
You have no idea where somebody's going to finish.
Teams that, with roster retention, you can get a pretty good handle on where they're going to be.
Sure.
I mean, if we were to vote on basketball, I don't know. Like, who would I pick eighth? I don't know. The dartboard.
Yeah.
The NFL is maybe looking to renegotiate its media rights agreements prior to its 2029 opt-out, according to John Orand of Puck. The league could approach the networks before the 2029 opt-out to try and renegotiate new deals. In this current configuration, the NFL would waive any opt-out provision and extend the current broadcast deals, which expire in 2033, for another year or two. They say a lot has to happen before the NFL would exercise that kind of strategy. Now, to me, this whole strategy surrounds the 18th game. That's what I think.
Yep.
the NFL would bring itself to the market before the expiration of the NHL and Major League Baseball deals in 2028. An earlier timing would also potentially provide the NFL a more favorable environment when it comes to the legacy broadcast networks. CBS and Fox might be in a less advantageous position to bid on sports rights as cord cutting continues. Renegotiating these deals earlier would also likely enlarge the bidding pool. I mean, I can do the Amazon thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, do I want to sit there and go from Amazon to like, okay, I'm going to go to Peacock now, I'm going to go to Netflix now? I mean, come on.
But they do, and that's why the NFL does what they're able to do. Absolutely. It's like I said yesterday, I think to me, if you subscribe to Sunday Ticket, the amount of money you're paying for a Sunday Ticket, you should get every game, and I mean every game. Period. Yeah. No matter what platform it's on, no matter what streaming service it's on, it absolutely should be getting those games. Unfortunately, you don't. You get the ones on YouTube TV, the ones on Peacock, you got to subscribe to Peacock. Ones on Netflix, you got to subscribe to Netflix. The ones on Amazon, hopefully you have an Amazon account. It's very costly anymore to be an NFL fan. And I'm not just talking about the people that are in seats at the stadiums. That's another story.
Yeah.
They're refinancing their house to sit in those seats. On the other hand, the fans sitting at home are paying a ridiculous amount anymore, no matter what, to watch their team play every game. Man, you want to say it's greed? It is. That's fine. Unfortunately, they can do it because they're the NFL.
Yeah.
Will there be a fine line at some point where somebody says enough's enough? You hope, but who knows where that point is? Well, we've not reached it yet.
I'll give you one of the reasons I think, just from the outside looking in. If I'm the NFL, am I sitting there saying, whoa, wait a minute. Why is ESPN, ABC paying more to the NBA than they are to the NFL?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Because the new deal is 11 years, $76 billion with the NBA. Of that $76 billion, I think ESPN's paying what? Out of that, $4 billion.
$4 billion? Yep.
I mean, the NFL wants to be a $20 billion a year,
which it will be.
League.
Yeah, which it will be.
I know Roger Goodell stated 25, but we'll just go with 20 to be conservative. I think what they want to do is they want to own, like by going to 18 games, when do you think they'll start?
Oh, they'll start Labor Day weekend now. Yeah, sure.
Who owns Labor Day weekend right now?
Yeah, college football. Yep.
Okay. So they'll own Labor Day weekend.
Yep. They'll own the first round of the playoffs.
They'll own Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
They'll own Christmas.
Yep.
They somehow.
How long until New Year's Day?
They somehow someday. Well, they get New Year's Day on Sunday. Yeah, that's why those games are on January 2nd when they.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
That's already been conceded years ago.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to play an MLK Day? Okay.
You can.
And
playoff game, I guess.
Yes, you can. Wild card weekend.
Yeah.
Wild card weekend.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And everybody talks about, I would love to have a 3-day weekend when it came to the Super Bowl. Guess
President's
what?
Day.
President's Day.
Absolutely.
Voila.
Absolutely.
Right? Right? Now, if they end up taking a hammer to college football and the NBA, they don't care.
They don't care. And that's it, the big part of it. And unfortunately, they take away from everything because of the fact they are the king, ultimately. And they will be. That's the way the NFL is, and they know they can do it. That's the biggest part of it. They absolutely know. I don't even want to say get away with it, because fans follow. It's not even getting away with it. It's just introducing another thing to do for them.
Well, first of all, in most streaming packages you get, don't you get Fox and CBS over the air? Most of the ones I see.
I would think so.
You do.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's
So like YouTube. YouTube and well, sure.
Hulu and YouTube and things like that. You already get that stuff.
Right.
But I mean, to their credit, I got to give the NFL complete credit. They really don't care.
No, they don't care. They know. Well, they know the fans are going to pay it. That's the part of it. At what point do the fans ultimately say, "Hey, I'm not paying for all of this anymore"? Will there ever be that point? Who knows? But when it comes to the NFL, obviously fan bases, and this is the same with college football. It's the same with anybody in sports. Fan bases are loyal and will do anything they can to see their team. NFL especially. They want to see. It's a little bit, I don't want to say easier with NFL. It's more costly, but you're able to set aside 18, 19, 20, sometimes 21 games of the year. It'll be 21 if it goes to 18 games out of the year where you can sit and watch your team. A little bit different than the Phillies where you're watching 162 games. Right. Sixers where you're watching 82 games. Do the diehard fans watch that? Absolutely. But it's easier for...
the diehard fans always watch everything. That's why they're diehards. Sure. It's the casual fan.
The casual fan that
and
tunes
the NFL brilliantly attracts the casual fan.
Sure. Absolutely. Do. Yeah, 100%. Because they putting those games on Christmas on Netflix is a move where you look at it and say, hey, they could very easily draw higher ratings than a network. Yes, I agree. But on the flip side, you're looking around thinking, okay, it's Christmas Day. I got nothing better to do. I'm going to do a free trial to Netflix, see what it looks like. So they bring in not only the casual fan, they bring in the casual fan to that platform, which makes even more money because then that platform is going to spend more money on the NFL. Everything comes together perfectly when it comes to them because they're just able to do it.
They also don't care.
No, they never cared. What do they care for? They're making money.
Playoff, don't care. We're still playing on Saturday.
They're bringing in the money.
They don't care.
No, they don't care.
Right.
They're bringing in the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at first round of the college football playoff this year. You're going to have an Eagles and Commanders game likely in primetime.
Yeah.
Which means the dreams of having a game up here in primetime on a Saturday is probably not going to happen.
Yeah. So.
Because you're not going to, well, in most cases, you're not going to want to compete with a Pennsylvania team. Two Pennsylvania teams competing with one another.
No,
you don't want to make the fan choose.
That's why Penn State was at noon last year.
Absolutely. You didn't want to make the fan choose between the Steelers and the Penn State. And same with that night. You don't want to make them choose.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like...
That's why I put it Friday night. But...
No, but I mean...
But either way...
But what they did
Or you win the division and play New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Win the conference.
Right, exactly.
But...
I mean, I feel like there was at least some conversation between the two as to how to work
that. There has to be. Yeah, there has to be. There's conversation even on, like you said, you talked about New Year's Day.
Because the Houston Texans were not, they made sure they weren't opposite Texas.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah, which is the smart move. That's without a doubt. But, yeah, I have no idea where it's going to go when it comes to the NFL. I think it's going to go to 18 games. I think you're going to limit the preseason down to 2 games, which likely is going to happen.
Yeah.
Nobody's playing in the preseason anyway, and that's affecting the game for a good month very easily. I think that's clear. Not even people talk about the pandemic. Oh, look at the rust. It wasn't even only the pandemic. You're seeing it now. Yeah. You're seeing teams that are getting off to a slow start. Look at the Eagles last year.
Okay, there's a reason why, in my opinion, they're all getting off to slow starts, where the first month is a grab bag.
Sure.
That's the preseason.
Exactly. You're not playing in the preseason. That's the biggest reason. You're not playing your starters.
We're now in what I refer to as the bubble wrap era.
Yeah. Because, look, you don't want to get injured in the preseason, too. That's the obvious.
Don't play them.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sakes. right? And the Eagles last year were 2-2.
Yeah, exactly. 2-2. They come off the bye week, and they played. Obviously, they
haven't figured out yet how to play together.
No,
that's fine.
No, once they did, they're the best team in the league by far.
Yeah, I mean, the Penn State's opening non-conference duel is going to be at the DAC.
Nice.
They're going to be against Drexel, December 5th. So, get rolling. They just won the national championship in Philadelphia.
Now they're back in
the next season.
Nice.
Back to Philly.
Yeah.
You know, the odd thing is, I've done games in Wells Fargo, the Palestra, Leocora.
I was going to say Leocora. Yep.
Hawk Hill.
Oh, okay. Yep.
The Lodge, right? McGonigal Hall, right? I've done all games in all those places, okay, in Philly. Never I've driven past the DAC.
I was gonna say I've walked past the DAC when I visited Temple, but I never.
Every time Penn State's played Drexel, it's either been in the Palestra or that one game in Allentown. I've never been in the building.
Nice.
Never been in it.
No, I've walked past it. I've never been in it either.
You know, and Drexel. I mean, Drexel was on Penn State's schedule last year. They played down in at Wells Fargo.
Yep.
Right. In fact, I saw Drexel. I had a long talk with Drexel's coach last year when we were down in Orlando, and he's talking to me about the playoff and the whole thing. He's a big Penn State football fan. Like, okay, all right, Zach Spiker, good dude. I like him. But we were sitting in the stands down in Orlando, and like, hey, Steve, what about this and this and this? You know, and Penn State ice hockey got the commitment from the guy that could be the first overall pick in next year's draft. Incredible. Name is Gavin McKenna. I mean, Emily Kaplan was a riot at the NHL draft because I mean, as we know, Emily is a Penn State grad.
Yeah.
And she's going on and on about when Jackson was picked. I think it was, 14th overall?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And she's like, she's like, and they're going to get Gavin McKenna. It's like, okay. I mean, this is some group. This is some group. Yeah, hopefully you can sell some tickets for it. I'm just kidding. It really is. I mean, really, it's incredible. I mean, what they've been able to do with all this. I mean,
absolutely, yeah. What the offseason they've had has been insane, and that's
plus Guy's son. Right? We haven't talked about him.
No.
I mean, jeez. It is a great time to be a part of that program. Great time to be a part of that program. This is an incredible time for Penn State sports. I mean, you're coming off a year with a Final Four in football, a Final Four in men's lacrosse, a Frozen Four in ice hockey, a national championship in wrestling, a national championship in women's volleyball, and an Elite Eight in women's soccer. And you have a chance in this upcoming year, and we'll see how it plays out, for even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
There's no doubt. Yeah, you got a lot better in wrestling, which is I'm not sure is possible, but you did.
It's unbelievable.
You obviously got a lot better in hockey. Yeah, football program. It's been a heck of an off season for football. Yeah, there's no question. I think there's a lot of potential in Penn State coming up.
And it's potential. I mean, let's be honest. You have to go out and do it. You have to go out and do it. Simple as that. And all I know is it just seems like it is a fun time around here.
Sure.
And we'll see how we get to see firsthand how it ends up playing out. That's part of the fun of it. I think everybody always likes to know the ending.
Absolutely.
Right? Everybody's, like they love, like let's skip to the ending. No, you can't do that. You have to. That's why, when coaches talk about embracing the journey, I think that's the only thing you can do when you're the ones that are the participants.
Absolutely.
Is you talk to them about embracing the journey. And I think that if you don't, see, that's what I like about James Franklin's approach in this offseason, is that everybody has been talking about, Penn State and where Penn State's going to be and how good are they. And he hasn't shied away from it. I mean, he is he's just, I think he's taken the right approach to all the expectations surrounding them. Now, do I care at all where they are ranked in the preseason poll? No, I don't.
It doesn't matter. It's good for hype. It's great for.
But I used to.
Yeah, because the playoff rankings weren't existing.
Right, and in other words, you wanted a team to be ranked in the top 10 because positioning was so important.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
As to where your starting point, he gave you a better shot at getting to the top. If you were ranked anywhere from 15 to 20, you're sitting there like, okay, well, we got to keep winning, and they've got to keep losing, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. You don't control as much. Now, a little bit different. With the 12-team playoff, it's a little bit different. I'm not as concerned about where they start anymore. And if it happens to be at the top, then so be it. It happens to be at the top. But I don't worry about that. It's just one of those things like, well, what about the pressure of it? I think there's no pressure on it. With a 12-team playoff, you don't have that kind of pressure. You just go out and play your games. I mean, that's how I view it.
Sure. Yeah, and it's not easier. I won't use that word. I think it's ultimately where you lose now doesn't affect you as much. If you have a loss, one-loss teams are for the most part treated more equally. If you go back to when there wasn't a playoff, Penn State loses the last game of the year to Michigan State. Ohio State loses the second game of the year to Texas. Ohio State's going to be higher ranked. Ohio State's going to be in better position for a national championship. That's not the case anymore. I think ultimately where you lose doesn't matter as much. Whereas when there wasn't a playoff, you lose that late season game, that hurt you in a big way.
Sure.
In college football, it hurt you in a big way. It hurt pretty much every conference. Look, it hurt Florida State when they lost to Miami. How many times? It hurt a lot of other schools. Hey, you look at Florida State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame loses to Boston College that year after they beat Florida State. Right. Florida State plays for a national championship. So, yeah, there's no doubt. Back then, it mattered where you lost.
Right.
Now, I think you can afford that loss, and you're still in the playoff. You're still in position. And I think that was... Right, well, I don't want to say that was fully the message when Penn State lost to Ohio State last year. Obviously, there was frustration, but you also knew you could you were in position.
Yeah, you knew as a program.
Exactly.
Not your fans.
Yeah, not the fans. Absolutely.
They left that. Okay, yeah. I'm on the postgame show explaining. Yeah. Hey guys, you're disappointed right now, but
exactly.
Okay, your team is in a 4-game playoff to make the playoff,
and it worked out about as well as it could work out because you played for a Big Ten championship too.
Right.
On top of it.
Right.
So absolutely.
Okay. And so the fans had to get used to the process as well. Now, for James Franklin, what's the motivator here? Ignore the outside noise, beat Nevada. As he says, the fans He says, Nevada. He says, yeah, Nevada, yeah. He says, that's not a big game. He said, it becomes a big game if you lose it.
Absolutely. He's right on.
I know. But again.
Michigan with Appalachian State.
But again,
nobody picked that to happen.
Well, Northern Illinois.
Illinois with Notre Dame. Yeah.
Okay. But he's right about that.
Sure.
And that is when I look at these guys, they're good, they're deep, but I mean, you've got to negotiate a long season. And this is something I was on with E.J. Manuel and Jacob Hester last week on Sirius XM on the college football channel. And I said one of the keys after watching Penn State go through last year's run, because it was the first time you ever had a 12-team playoff. So you had multiple playoff rounds. Penn State played 3 playoff games last year. I'm not including the Big Ten championship game. They played 3 playoff games. I said, you need depth. I said, there are a lot of teams that have really good starting 22s. I said, but they can't negotiate a season that long, because if they get 1 or 2 guys banged up and they don't have them for a week or two, it affects the entire outcome of the season. Okay? Example, Penn State basketball last year with Puff Johnson when he got hurt. Eli Rice was already out, so you had nobody to replace him because Nick Kern moved up into the starting lineup, and there was nobody to replace Nick Kern coming off the bench. That's the domino effect when you don't have a lot of depth. Well, football's the same way. Suddenly you're going through a long season. What's your depth like? Do you have quality depth? Okay. Andel Rapplier gets hurt last year, right? And misses a good portion of the season. And Luke Reynolds steps up. Okay. Depth. Okay. And when you look at how Penn State plays, and I've talked about this for years, Davian Collins, in all likelihood, is not going to start. Right? It's going to be Elliott Washington and A.J. Harris. Okay. Well, those happen to be 2 of the better corners in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. But Davian Collins is a darn good football player. I mean, really good. And I consider him a starter. Why? Because he's going to play as many reps in the game as those other 2 guys are. Right?
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Fourth quarter, he's going to be out there.
Absolutely.
He'll be out there.
Yeah.
Maybe on the last drive he's not going to be out there, but he's going to be out there in the fourth quarter. He's a starter. Right? Who ends up being the nickel guy in all this is, what do you want to do at the safety spot? Do you want to have Wheatley and King Mack? Do you want to have Day Lane out there with him? Where do you want to put Zion Tracy on this? Is he your slot corner? I mean, these are all starters to me. The number of guys playing on the defensive front, you're going to
they're going to get as many snaps.
You're going to get 10 guys playing. To me, anybody that they're going to put out there in the fourth quarter of a game and have the confidence to put them out in the fourth quarter of a game, I consider a starter. Penn State could have 20 to 25 guys on defense playing. To me, they're all starters. And same thing on offense. If I've got a 7-man rotation of wide receiver, I consider all 7 to be starters.
Yeah, when you're getting the same amount of snaps, absolutely, and you're the person they can count on down the stretch. Certainly, there's no doubt you're either a starter or on par with a starter.
Well, yeah,
now, the depth chart may not show you as a starter, but I think you're a starter.
What depth chart?
Exactly.
There is no depth chart. Yeah. But I consider those guys starters. If you're going to play, let's just pick a number, 8 offensive linemen. Okay, 3 guys may not start the game, but if they're getting meaningful reps during the course of the game,
sure,
to me they're starters. Right? Because you're being asked to make plays in key moments of the game. Okay? Just
Great.
you just didn't open the game. Okay? It's like looking at Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. Well, Singleton started today. I guess Allen's the backup. Oh, no.
No.
That's not how it is.
In Illinois last year, they had, 4 running backs they used. It wasn't one clear-cut starter.
Right. So, and then we'll see who the third guy happens to be.
Yeah.
Out of that, we'll see how Tyke Hayes does. We'll see how Martin does, right? And on the comeback trail, let's see how Cam Wallace is.
Yeah.
All the things that, but you need, my point is you need depth to survive. Okay? And that's one, because you're going to get, bumped up where a guy's going to miss a game or two. You don't want anything long term. I mean, they already have one long term off-season injury. Okay, they've already had that at defensive end. Max Granville was going to be a guy that played a lot, in my opinion. Wouldn't have been a starter, but would have played a lot. But getting a Keon Wiley back at linebacker, very important. Guy like Dom DeLuca, Tony Rojas. You've got guys where we know that Jim wants to play a lot of 2 linebackers. Occasionally he'll play 3. But that is, I think that they are a deep team in a lot of areas. Now, in the preseason, what's the one area where you say, okay, let's talk about the depth? Quarterback.
Quarterback, of course, yeah.
Right. Drew is Drew.
Yeah.
Okay. Drew is Drew. And, man, they are so fortunate to have him, and that fact that he's back. Okay? But what about Jackson Smolik and Ethan Grunkemeyer? Grunkemeyer took a few snaps against SMU, but that's it. Okay? And that's it. He's took a few snaps. Jackson Smolik's never taken a snap in a game. So I don't know. Now, whomever emerges out of that camp, and we'll see if there is somebody that emerges. I mean, for all we know, they're still even going into the season, but we'll see. But just say one emerges as, okay, we think that's the backup. The games will play out in certain ways, but if they play out in a way that can help Penn State, it would be to play that person the way Drew played his freshman year. Drew got into 9 games his freshman year. And I think that was important to his development. So, yeah. Hey, there's a lot of things with this team to talk about. There's a lot for Ohio State to talk about.
Sure.
There's a fair amount to talk about with Oregon. Losing Stewart at wide receiver hurt.
Thought that was big, yeah.
Malachi Moore is not going to – Malachi Moore had mixed results at UCLA, but he's older now. Okay? But he's not Dylan Gabriel.
No.
Whittington was a good
right
supplemental back last year. Now he gets to be the primetime guy. Their offensive line, the 2 tackles are gone.
Yep.
Okay? Defensively, they're good, though.
Yep.
Bachelor's back at middle linebacker. Uyunglele is now still back at that defensive end spot. I mean, defensively, they got some players.
And aside from the game here, obviously, that's going to be their first.
Schedule's
very, very favorable. Yeah. Absolutely. This game's going to be their first.
In fact,
play at Northwestern, but that here's going to be their first true road.
Yeah, and I think they've got buys. built in to their schedule. They're in the right spot.
I was going to say, I think it's after this game, after the whiteout.
It is after this game.
I believe.
Got a bye after that game. Conversely, Penn State has a bye going into the game. This is
I think easily
because look, okay, when it comes time to take a long look at guys or at teams, I should say, and this is basketball, football. So in basketball, I want to know who your home and aways are and where your what your one plays are and where are they. Okay. Now it was more pronounced until before they expanded 18 schools. But who are your home and aways? What are your one plays and where are the one plays played? In football, who do you play? Who don't you play?
Yeah.
And where do you play your games?
Yep.
Okay. Right. What really helped Indiana last year is that until the end, they did not have Michigan, or they didn't have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. They didn't have Penn State or Oregon last year.
Didn't have them on the schedule at all, right?
Right, and did not get those guys until the end and had Michigan at home. That game been at Michigan. I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure they know. No, that game would have gone another quarter. I'm not sure they win that game in Bloomington, let alone in Ann Arbor. No, I don't think so either.
Right.
I think a good defense showed what they lacked offensively, what Indiana lacked offensively.
Right.
Yeah, and that's Michigan did that, Notre Dame did that.
But again, what did they do with last year with
Ohio
that
State
team?
did it too, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's who do you play? Who don't you play?
Yeah, sure.
And where do you play the games?
Absolutely.
Okay. So they had to play at Ohio State.
Yeah.
Didn't work. In the playoff, the playoffs catch as catch can, but you had to play at Notre Dame. That didn't work either.
No.
So,
but again, it also shows you take care of the little things, the little games. The little thing. Not that a gimme game. There's ever a gimme game, but you take care of the games you're supposed to win, and you get to that spot. You put yourself in great position for the playoff.
Georgia's a good example. Georgia's 3 biggest games last year were all on the road.
Yeah.
All 3 of those teams go to Sanford Stadium this year. Who do you play? Who don't you play?
Yeah.
Where do you play them?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's one of the keys to figuring out a team's chances schedule-wise once you get the personnel part figured out. Okay. Who don't you play? Who do you play? And where do you play them? That was always the advantage for Alabama for years. They rarely played Georgia when Bear Bryant was there. You know that? Rarely.
Huh.
Oh, the SEC. Yeah. The SEC. The stuff they've been able to get away with over the years. Nobody checks them on.
Well, they play the gimme game in November, where they play
but nobody checks them on it. I mean, do you think ESPN is going to sit there on College Game Day with the SEC contract in their back pocket for the next 8-9 years and criticize that Alabama's playing Mercer that day?
No. Nope.
Right?
No, they're going to make the argument.
Now, journalistically, should they? Sure. But don't tell me you have journalists on the set when none of them bring it up.
That's true.
I thought you guys were like preach journalism there. Where's the journalism on this? Right? Indiana's playing at Ohio State today. Alabama's playing Mercer. Okay. Now, it should be pointed out Indiana made it and Alabama didn't.
True.
But
that is true.
Another brilliant show by you. I kind of marvel at all the things you don't say. That's
right.
Really. God, you're scary.